Hi everyone, Scott with CyberScribe.org, and in this video I'm going to be using Ansible Galaxy to extend the functionality of Ansible itself, and with that I'm going to be using a collection from Ansible Galaxy to install MongoDB. Otherwise I would have to write my own playbook for that and go that route. So before that, because my goal is to use Ansible not just to install, for example, Mongo, but to kind of administer it that way too. So that's kind of the goal, and the idea is, well, I'd have to write playbooks for all that stuff. Well, maybe I should check out and see if there's other ways, items that are already kind of prepackaged for that, or at least giving me a head start, and that's what some of these collections in Ansible Galaxy are. So think of it as like a repository of just prepackaged, kind of pre-written playbooks. They're not playbooks, but they're items that you can use in your playbooks. So if you can get a head start with that for some of your projects, well, that's a good thing. So that's kind of the reasoning why I was looking at Ansible Galaxy here. So you can see it's a just kind of a normal, like, it's Ansible, like it's a normal thing in here. It's not some third-party hosting or anything like that. So basically what I'm looking to do, and just galaxy.ansible.com, and you can take a look, whatever you want. Do you want, if you want, say, monitoring, and then just look however you want to filter, but I mean, maybe some of these things. So for example, Grafana, 71,000 downloads, 2 million here, Google Cloud Platform for some of these things, things like that. And within here, I don't want to go too far into this, but basically, yeah, see, so this is just a lot of, like, if you were using GCP, a lot of different stuff and functionality that's kind of just a little bit more built in, that is not built in the regular Ansible itself. So for example, if you go here and let's look at Mongo, let's get back on the track to Mongo here. So the modules for MongoDB in Ansible, there's only a couple. There's nothing here for installing, which makes sense because you need other information for that. It's not just a single action. So basically what you're going to see, and just getting, it's in database, and then just to show you how exactly I got there. Download count, and then I'm focusing on these Ansible community ones, and then just MongoDB. That's where we're at right here. So basically what you're doing is you're just copying, installing, running this command on your server, and that should basically install this content. So what content is in this MongoDB collection? So a little bit more than what was here. You got 4 things, 4 modules in the standard Ansible basically standard library of modules. Here you have a good deal more. Modules, like your single items of functionality, you have, 10? And then plugins, you have, and plugins are just extending the functionality of Ansible itself. So for example, these lookup plugins, they allow you to reference like information from MongoDB as you would a fact that is gathered from Ansible itself within the templating language. So for example, and I haven't looked too much into this, this is just what I've read, but so that right there is so this is how you would reference an IP address from the facts that you gathered in your playbook. And basically you should be able to do something similar with MongoDB information, which is pretty useful because then you don't have to go and query Mongo or something and then get that data, then put it into a variable, then use that variable. It's just kind of like this. So like I said, that seems to be useful, but I haven't really touched it or used it or anything. Roles, this is what I'm going to be focusing on here. So roles are kind of collections of, say for example, you have a complex playbook or a playbook that has kind of a good deal of moving parts, more than just a single item of functionality. So for example, if you're installing MongoDB, so I already had a playbook to do this, and for this, it's not too big of a thing, but I already know that I'm on Red Hat. So if somebody is writing a playbook, maybe you have an environment where you don't really know what you're going to be using, so then you would need to add more to this playbook for that. But even so, I still have one. Well, upgrading is just a good idea, but 1, 2, 3, and then 4 tasks to install MongoDB, which is including importing the public key for the repository itself, and then adding the repository, which in this case is just 4.4, and then installing it, and then starting the service. So basically, this is not a complex playbook, but you're doing more things. So basically, I had that, and what I'm trying to do with this Ansible Galaxy collection from MongoDB, this Mongo install role here, try to get this to this, these two things. And as you can see here, there is a good deal of other functionality. For example, SE Linux, if you're running into issues with that, or I think that seems like a promising one. MongoDB auth, that seems pretty good too. And replica set down here, which is also in the Ansible standard, which I think this probably came from the Community Galaxy module here. But then you have other things too. Shutdown, creating indexes, parameters. So basically the point is a good deal more functionality than what is originally built into Ansible. And like I said, if you can get a little farther, go for it. So basically that's what I'm going to do here is we're just going to try to run this playbook and see what happens. And first thing we need to do is install Ansible Galaxy MongoDB plugin or community here. But what you can do is, if you look, some of these things aren't really well documented here. Your description, I mean, it's just nobody filled that out. So what you can do is, I believe it's DocSite, if that's, yeah, GitHub right here. So you can just go and just look and see what's happening. So MongoDB install on Red Hat and Debian, and then installs the meta package, which then installs the server, the shell, some other things. And then just copy and paste your playbook from there. But what you see is this is a role here. And what you have is roles are, like I said, kind of more complex playbooks broken up into separate files or directories and things like that. So these are the available file or available folders in a role, but they don't all have to be used. So for example, in this example here, web servers, you're just using tasks, default, and meta. So in our role right here, we're just using tasks and meta. Molecule is just a testing item, so don't worry about that. Really here, meta, let's just see what this is. This is basically what I'm showing you is going to be what is running on the when I run this playbook. Okay, not really much there. But then let's look here at the tasks and we'll see. So installing packages for Mongo, and then specific versions, really, that's kind of what we're talking about there. And then installing. So, And like I said, I want to use these other roles as well. So that's kind of why. I mean, if it was just, if this, for example, if this was just like the only thing available in here was an install, I don't think it would be worth it. But I think it's worth trying out these other items and just to see, because it might kind of move you forward a little bit quicker than if you were doing it on your own. And if you're not an Ansible expert, I would think that the people writing these are probably significantly better at Ansible than I am. That would at least be the hope. All right. So kind of see install. What else do I have in this playbook? Okay, MongoDB repository. So let's just look quickly at that. And so this is, I believe what this is going to be is setting up the repository here. So main, include OS, yeah, Ansible facts. And then, so you see, this is what I was talking about with the Ansible facts. So here it's going to be redhat.yaml. And if you go back, you go to redhat.yaml, and then it adds, so this is adding the key, and then also just adding the repository. So you do that first, and then second you install from there. So I'm going to, right now, we'll just see how it goes. I'm just going to do this on my Ansible server. And like I said, this is all live. So if it kind of continues and drags a little bit, I'll pause. But and like I said, I'll have some links in my notes for this. And just take it from there. All right. So there you go. Installing Ansible, community.mongodb. Done. So now let's go and see how that is going to translate into hooking in with my playbook. And then we'll do that in Ansible Tower. So let's go there. All right, and one thing is I did update my repo for these two playbooks here. So when you do that, all you need to do to get those playbooks to register in Ansible Tower, maybe wait some time. I'm sure these are kind of on a timer to sync, but if you want to kind of just do it right away, go into your projects where you see Git. I have my GitHub integration on my DDSec thing, and then just get the latest version right there. Then you see here, it's going to go running, click for details. I mean, this is really just a playbook, and successful. So now what we can do is go into our templates, and I'm going to create a template for installing Mongo. And not going to do any scheduling or anything like this. This is going to be a single run. So installing Mongo, job type run, inventory is going to be, should be that one. Yes, it is. And project is going to be this one, playbook. You see these are two now recognized in here. So I believe it's 2, right? Yes, it is. So we'll do Mongo install 2. And then credentials, Ansible user. Let's just check and see if we have an Ansible user. I believe I added, and I did. Okay. And this, just make the verbosity a little bit more verbose, just in case there's issues. Otherwise, you're not going to get great information on why it failed. And that should be it. So I'm going to save the playbook. And I'm going to just run this here. And then I'm going to, when I do, I'm going to pause and we'll come back once this is done. And if there's any issues, I'll kind of look through what the problem is before coming back. But that should be it. We should be good. So let's run it, and we'll pause here. And we're back, and it wasn't a first time successful run, so we can go through some of those things, but I did get it to work, and it did install Mongo on all of my 3 servers here. So, and then I'll just start it on my other ones, and then we can look at why it failed. And the other thing is it did not start the service, which is not that big of a deal. It's just something to keep in mind that when you run these roles, it might not do everything that you think it's going to do. So just double check on some of these things. And we'll go back to 1 or 0. And we will just check. Should be up. And the other thing is it does not have any authentication or anything. So, you know, it's installed, but we need to do a little bit more work to get it where it's actually usable and safely usable. But it did install. So let's go through some issues that I had. And this is what's nice about the verbose logging, and also nice for Ansible Tower itself. So if we go into jobs, I'll look and you'll see install Mongo, right? And then install here and these things. So it was the same error here. So let's just look at what it was, and we'll see the issue here. So these are just some things to consider. Shows, and remember, this is Ansible. This is not Ansible Tower. So, I mean, like the documentation for Ansible Galaxy, they're talking, their audience is Ansible users. Their audience is not Ansible Tower users. So this is why I think I had the issue. But, so, you know, just installing as a regular user, and that's what I did. And it did not work. It said that this MongoDB repository was not found in these locations. So here, var lib awx, this is Ansible Tower here, and then also, well, user share or etc Ansible. So basically what I did is I took one of these, I took etc Ansible roles, and I copied the modules or the roles into there. So just as for my own testing, I also did I installed it as my admin user, but I also then just double checking I did it as root. Neither of them worked. I both got the same issue that it wasn't able to be found right there. And you see there just MongoDB repository. So basically what I did to get it working is just searched for these, and then you get the file path. And I just did it in root because I was putting it into etc Ansible roles, which is root here. So basically all I did is I just copied this, well, hold on, where I'll get to the roles. I copied this path here recursively into etc Ansible here. etc Ansible roles, and now if you look, MongoDB repository and then MongoDB install is there. So not really an ideal way to have it set up, because for example, if this, like if I go to try to update this, I haven't looked at any of this stuff, but I'm just thinking, if you go to update this, you're going to update the wrong thing and you're going to have to do it again. So this is kind of a hacky way to get it working, but I did get it working, and it did install, and we will just see that on my next job here. So installed successfully, worked, and you can see that on my servers here. Up and running. And the other thing too, like I said, the service was not started or enabled, so you still need to do that, and I'm going to make a note about that. And just something to keep in mind. I mean, these aren't perfect easy button type things, but still, like now that I know that this might have future issues with the finding of the files and things like that. I might have to see about doing it in a different way. But you learn these things one or two times, and then you can just do them again without these complications. And it wasn't that big of a thing. So yeah, that's it. And then after that, it found that MongoDB repository because it is in now Etsy Ansible roles. Like I said, not an ideal solution, but for this situation, I'm only going to be installing Mongo once on these. So it's not the end of the world, but it's not really perfect or anything like that. Another issue I was thinking about, and I haven't come across it yet, but I'm thinking I might, is so these roles were moved over. But the things that weren't moved over were these plugins. And I mean, I can do that. Like, I might just move those plugins. And then there was the modules, which I don't see the modules in here. So let me just check for that. So this is the one, you see that? So this is a kind of a duplicate of this one anyway. Seems to be. I didn't look at the source for both of these. But there are other modules. So basically, I would probably go and have to either manually move these things or install them a little differently into maybe here. I'm not sure. It depends on what the error you get with when you try to run these things. So, not the most seamless experience running that role, but in the end, we did get, like 5 lines or something to install versus 25. And then, you take out these because it didn't start or run on boot. So that's, again, just something to be aware of. Like, I still think these roles are very good to use, and even the Ansible Galaxy ones within Ansible Tower, I think there's really good promise for these things, and I think you can probably do a lot. But given what I've experienced here, I think you probably also need to know that you might need to do a little bit of tweaking when you first install them, and just have your items set to verbose logging. Now, I'm not sure if I took off verbose that this would not be there. I think it probably would have been just because it's an error, but it doesn't hurt to have the other information too. But in the end, we got it working. We got it installed on my 3 servers, and the playbook ran 35 seconds to run this. And just think about, regardless of Ansible Galaxy and roles, but think about just the base Ansible ability to install MongoDB on 3 servers, which includes setting up the GPG keys, setting up the repositories, and then installing, and then going through all that stuff. And, doing that just as quick as we were able to do within, like, it says elapsed 35 seconds, but I don't think I had Mongo installed on these other ones, so I don't think it really took 35 seconds to install. That seems a little off. It seems like it should have taken longer just for like downloading the packages and things like that. But regardless, it still would have been like a minute or two to install. And I mean, I do have a really fast connection here, so I don't know. But a couple minutes to install Mongo database on 3 different servers with Ansible versus doing it yourself, which you're probably talking significantly longer than that, just because you're bouncing from one to another to another. So I think there's pretty good promise with Ansible Galaxy and using some of the roles and some of the pre-made content in here, and I'm going to be exploring that further. And like I said, just to repeat again and again and again, just be aware that you might run into some initial issues with Ansible Tower and some file location issues, and there might be a better way than what I've done to get it working, but point is it's still working. So that's all I had for this video, and stay tuned for future videos.